How's it going, Yankee fans? My name is Alex with my co-host here, Ryan Garcia. We kind of want to take a look at the shortstop position. IKF, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, acquired him for the Minnesota Twins before the 2022 season began, has been struggling. We'll talk about his numbers, some of his metrics, and, why the Yankees might want to give one of their star-studded prospects, Oswald Peraza, a couple of reps here before the All-Star break or even after the All-Star break. At the end of the day, the Yankees have a 13-game cushion in the AL East. They still sit 8 or 9 games above Houston in all of baseball. So, factoring in those numbers, I think it's fair to say they can afford to give some of their younger guys some opportunities. And, I don't think they're going to skip a beat. Even when IKF missed a couple games, they still won, against worse teams. I think they have the luxury of testing out some of their prospects to at least give them a chance to showcase their talents. I mean, we want to talk about Oswald Peraza, what he'd bring immediately, how electric he's been in the month of June. He's been absolutely on fire, but also why IKF maybe they consider like platooning at third base. Some interesting conversations to have there. Before we do so, Ryan, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. Again, Yankees keep winning. I said this yesterday. Feels like every time I come on here, it's like, we're doing great. We're winning. But as you mentioned with Peraza, he was someone who was disappointing to start the year in the minor leagues. And with how IKF was struggling, it was really just more hurtful than in other years where you'd be looking at a top prospect struggling, like Jason Dominguez struggled a little bit to start last year, but you really didn't care because he wasn't a part of potentially your plans for that season or the next. Whereas Peraza's success could completely change the Yankees' outlook at the shortstop position. Right now, I think we can agree shortstop is a weakness on the team right now, and that's not even relative to the team. That's just in general. IKF is a worse shortstop than the average offensive shortstop. His outs above average are worse than the average outs above average for a shortstop. In whatever department outside of base running you look at, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is below average. But if you look at Oswald Peraza, well, yes, still on the season, he has below average offensive numbers with a 92 WRC plus. He's 8% worse than the average AAA hitter. If you look at how he's hit as of late, and if you look at how many fly balls he hits and how many he pulls, it's kind of difficult to see Oswald Peraza's struggles. It was difficult to see them sustaining themselves because when you look at a good hitter, what a good hitter does is they pull fly balls because that has the highest weighted on base average. That's like, or OPS, whatever offensive number you want to look at that charts total offense. In OPS, there's no better offensive outcome than a pulled fly ball, right? Because those go for home runs, extra base hits, yada yada yada. He doesn't hit a bunch of ground balls. He's a quick player, so even if he does hit ground balls, you imagine he could beat them out, which he has done. He had in the last 2 days, I believe he has 2 infield singles. He has really good power. We know that his power is solid. He's a great base runner. His calling card is his defense. So if he struggles defensively at the major league level, that's a completely different struggle that now you have to reconsider.
Yeah, I mean, look, at this point in time, like I mentioned, the cushion the Yankees have, I think it's worthwhile to explore the potential of giving Peraza some opportunities. IKF this month in June is hitting 274 with a 34% on base rate. A little bit better than his May. He really started the season strong, hitting 302 with a 33% on base rate, and a 365 slugging. So, he's not much of a power hitter. IKF hasn't hit a home run this year, hasn't really even come close, to be honest. He was more of a guy that was going to get on base, a solid base runner. He's fast, athletic. But at the end of the day, Peraza offers arguably better defense at shortstop. But the thing is, like, you look at IKF's numbers the last couple seasons, and you look at, that Gold Glove he won at third base. Last year had much better numbers defensively with Texas. And, specifically, he recorded a .972 fielding percentage. He had 10 defensive runs saved above average. He was a good player at shortstop, over 1,360 innings, but he won the Gold Glove at third base. He only played 366 innings there. He actually didn't play that many innings to begin with in the infield in 2020. Still ended up winning a Gold Glove, but last year, a lot better numbers. His defense has gotten a lot worse this season. So that's kind of interesting in my opinion, but when you're thinking about how the Yankees could maybe supplement that, I think offensively, he's just been a net negative at this point in time. He hasn't been getting on base at the rate you'd like. He doesn't have any power. And he's striking out at 22.5%, he's striking out at 14.7%, which isn't bad at all. That's not a number to be concerned about. He doesn't walk very much. But, you know, overall, like he just doesn't offer the most, you know, you could possibly get from a shortstop. He's kind of been a little bit disappointing. So here's my question for you. If the Yankees decided, let's give Peraza an opportunity. I actually have a couple questions for you, but I'll start off with this one. If the Yankees wanted to give Peraza an opportunity at shortstop, what do you do with IKF? Do you just keep Josh Donaldson, who looks a lot better the last couple of days? Do you just keep him at third base? Do you think you maybe move IKF there, kind of platoon those two guys and just kind of roll with a hot hand?
IKF's contact skills, they're fine. I mean, don't get me wrong, he does make a lot of contact, and like on the surface, that seems like a great thing. And I know a lot of people, their initial reaction. I remember I wrote a Joey Wendell article, and the initial reaction was he's doing his job, he's making a lot of contact. That's great and all, but what is contact if nothing comes out of it, right? You know, yes, you can force pressure on the defense, but it's an easy play it's a routine play when it's an 85-mile-per-hour ground ball right at the shortstop. What's not routine is a 95, 98, 99-mile-per-hour ground ball through the hole, right? Like, that's a tough play to make. You want to make defenses have to make tough plays, and that's by making quality contact, right? IKF does not make quality contact, and Peraza does make quality contact. This is a guy who I think personally, with his raw power tool of like, it's a 50-grade raw power tool, could probably get to 15 home runs in a season, has decent enough contact skills where you can see him hit 270, 280 in a year. And if he's getting on base at a 340 clip and a 400 slugging, this is a league average hitter with great defense and great base running. That is such a huge upgrade over Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. That, you know, the Yankees go from, this is a team that is 36 games over 500. I don't want to make it seem like I'm saying the Yankees cannot win a World Series with Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. That is dead wrong, because this team has won 56 games out of 76 with IKF as their shortstop. So yes, they can win even in spite of IKF. But if you want to get better, if you want to take an extra step, if you want to be able to dominate a team like Houston or the Dodgers, these small incremental upgrades, going from guys who are not playing well, like Joey Gallo or IKF, to better players, you know, Oswald Peraza, potentially an outfield like Benintendi or Happ or whoever, that's this team, the quality of at bats gets better. IKF doesn't see a lot of pitches. IKF doesn't get on base a lot. He's not playing the greatest defense. You're just trying to make your quality of an at bat, the quality of an at bat better. And Peraza is a threat to go deep. Peraza is a threat to steal second. Peraza is a threat to make a sparkling play. There's a difference there, and that's why it makes it a worthwhile difference.
Yeah, personally, I think, you know, contact hitting, there's two sides to it. And one is like, if you're making contact, but your on-base percentage is still low, the contact is irrelevant, right? Then there's other situational things where, like, if you make contact, sure, maybe you hit a pop fly or a sac fly and you drive in a run, or you shift a runner over. There are situations where, like, just basic contact can be beneficial to moving runners. But most of the time, you know, you're in a position where maybe there's not a runner on base, or there's a guy on first base. Like, how often do you have a guy on third base and you need to hit a pop fly or just make contact to drive them in? Not that often. So I'd say, like, contact with a low on base percentage is overall not exactly what you're looking for. And then you look at IKF's walk rate, and it's only at 6.3%, 6.4%. So he's not getting on base that way either. You know, a little bit concerning in terms of, like, the lack of power. Like you said, he doesn't really have any power at all. He has less than 1% barrel rate, exit velocity of 85.8 miles an hour, which is the second lowest in his career. Rather, I guess, you know, the third lowest in his career. Doesn't even matter when it's that low to begin with. It's not really doing much. So I do think that, like, Peraza would offer you potentially an immediate upgrade at defense. It also depends, like, if he's able to, you know, going to Yankee Stadium is not easy. You know, playing in front of the fans, and if you're not playing well, they will boo you. You know, you saw Joey Gallo. They had to freaking sit the guy because they've been booing the crap out of him so much. I mean, psychologically, the guy's probably shot. I mean, he's got to go at this point. I don't think he can recover from what's happening to him right now. I don't think he's kind of meant for the bright lights of the Bronx personally, but, you know, Peraza, young, he's a good player. He's 22. You know what I mean? Like, giving a 22-year-old prospect who's doing well, and for the record, in June, he's absolutely killing it. He's hitting .319 with a 39% on-base percentage, 542 OPS, 542 slugging, and a 932 OPS. He's absolutely crushing. He has 4 homers. He's on a 10-game hitting streak. He has 5 hits and 2 homers in his last 2 games. If there was ever a time to give Peraza an opportunity to showcase what he can do at the major league level on this type of hot streak, now is the time to give him a chance. Now is the time for him to come up riding this wave of confidence and see if he can put anything together at the major league level and maybe make an impact and maybe set the stage. And, like, if Brian Cashman was like, and here's the other question I was going to ask you. Do you think that maybe they're not giving him that chance because they don't want him to have a bad game or a bad couple games at the major league level to potentially dampen like his value. I don't think they necessarily would, but maybe Cashman's like, we want him to be unknown. We want him to be this stud prospect, but a little bit unknown. And like people can kind of formulate what he's going to be in the future if they wanted to flip him in a trade, if they wanted to use him in that kind of way. What are your thoughts on that? Like, do you think that maybe there's any game that Cashman's playing that they could use him in a potential trade, or do you think maybe it's more likely they bring him up this year and give him a couple reps?
Well, I think, Peraza is definitely going to be shopped around the block just because you have Volpe, and Volpe's the top guy in that farm. He's the top dog. They both play the same position. Volpe is starting to heat up in Double-A, so you imagine that he gets a Triple-A call potentially sometime soon. And that means Peraza has to go either to the Major League level or to a different organization, because you can't bench Peraza at the Triple-A level. Then that's stupid. That doesn't make any sense. So I think there is some aspect, as you said, of let me not rush Peraza. Let us take our time with Peraza. Let him develop. You mentioned it. He's 22. He's one of the youngest players at AAA. It would really be a nonsensical decision for the Yankees to, force themselves to call up Peraza instead of letting things ride out. If the team was struggling, I think they'd be a little more desperate. But the team's playing really well. You don't have to mortgage your future to get, maybe an extra win this season. In the regular season. What really matters is that Peraza is truly ready, right? Like, so let's let him ride this month out of June and part of July, and let him truly heat up and get comfortable at AAA before we give him that cold water shock of calling out to the major leagues and having him face quality opponents every single day, great pitching every single night. And as you mentioned in a trade, you got to realize teams, want these shiny new toys. They don't want players who now have question marks, right? If Peraza comes up and struggles defensively, that tanks a lot of his value, because now you're like, well, hold on, is he really a good defensive shortstop? Like, what really is he then? Oswald Peraza being an elite defender could literally be the difference between him being a top 10 shortstop and him being a utility player. Like, he could be a league average hitter. If he's an elite defender and a great base runner, that's a top 10 shortstop. Like, that's an elite shortstop. That is 4-win player, maybe a 5-win player on some seasons every single year at the age of 22 and with 6 years of control. Do you know how much value that would have to a major league team? Again, look at the Reds. Who is their shortstop? Kyle Farmer. He doesn't play the position well. If they got Oswald Peraza in a trade and he is a 3 to 4-win player for them for the next 6 years, that is unbelievable value for them. The Yankees, I think, want to make sure that Peraza is ready defensively, ready offensively, and is fully confident in his own abilities. And the Yankees are fully confident in his abilities to play at the major league level, because I really do think the ceiling is unbelievably high for Peraza because of his defense. And that again, Volpe just kind of puts the kind of pushing the envelope a little bit here. They have to do something with Peraza because Volpe has to get called up to AAA, or else the Yankees are just slowing his development unnecessarily.
Yeah, I mean, look, if by most accounts, people would probably say that Volpe is the future at shortstop, not Peraza. I think that's what most people would say. So, it's either you give Peraza a chance now, or you change his position, or you trade him. But you have to see what he is. If he ends up being an absolute monster at shortstop and he ends up being a long-term solution, maybe you have to change Volpe's position. Maybe you have to flip Volpe. You got to give the guy a chance, though. He's only 22 years old. He's crushing right now in AAA. He is so young. They can afford to keep him in the minors to keep his MLB service time down, which is probably what they're trying to do unless they flip him. But ultimately, we got to see what he's got at some point. And I think that now's the time to do it with such a good lead in the AL East, and plus we have a stretch of games against Cleveland, some teams that may not be as good as the Yankees, not even close, in fact. So, this is a good opportunity for him to see the field. They are going on a little bit of an away streak right now. So maybe when they come home, let him get his first action in the Bronx. I think that honestly, the Oakland series, this series probably would have been the best opportunity for him to get some reps, especially with IKF dealing with that little finger issue. But some food for thought, guys. Would love to hear your opinions below in the YouTube comment section. As always, make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.